welcome to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Kentucky attorney Jeff Roberts has over 25 years of experience. He'll provide answers to your questions related to personal injury and automobile accidents, workers' compensation claims, and Social Security disability benefits. Let's join Jeff for this episode. And friends, welcome back. We are in Calloway County with motorcycle injury attorney Jeff Roberts. Jeff, how are you?
I'm doing good, Jim. How are you?
Buddy, I'm doing well. And obviously from the intro, you can kind of tell we're going to focus on motorcycle accidents today. And,
yes.
And a lot of as I look back over the history of this podcast in particular, each spring you try to do what we call a PSA, because you've got I'll say a somewhat unique background on the fact that you've actually been a motorcyclist for most of your adult life and actually beyond.
Yes, I've ridden motorcycles from before. I rode dirt bikes when I was a kid and started riding street bikes even before I was technically street legal to do that, and have ridden motorcycles most of my life, yes.
Yeah, and I think, if you're handling a case like that, at least you have a different perspective than somebody that's never been on a bike and just really doesn't understand the physics and some of the other practicalities that, as a motorcyclist, you're very familiar with.
Correct. Yeah, that's true. I think that riding a motorcycle gives you a different perspective than people who've never ridden a motorcycle. With a motorcycle, one thing that I tell people that are just starting riding motorcycles, if they've not ridden for a while, is you have to pay so much more attention to the other drivers in front of you than you do in a car. You need to pay attention, obviously, to the vehicles in front of you when you're driving a car as well. But after riding for all of my adult life, and then having represented a lot of people who've been injured in motorcycle wrecks over my 33-year career, it's extremely rare that I see a situation where the motorcyclist was the one at fault in causing the collision. Does occur occasionally, but the vast majority of the time, it is a driver of an automobile not paying attention, not looking as closely as they should have, and not seeing the motorcyclist on the roadway and then turning in front of them or pulling out in front of them situation. In fact, I've already, we're early in the riding season this year. We've had some nice warm weather in March, and motorcycles started out again then, and I was thinking to myself then, people need to start paying more attention, be careful about it. I mentioned it briefly, I think, when we talked about tractors and things being back on the road in an episode a few episodes ago from there. But I've already sat down with a gentleman who was going down the road, straight roadway, Highway 641 here in Murray, actually, going down. It was straight, daytime. No reason somebody didn't see him, and somebody turned left right in front of him. And so it's just people don't, especially this time of the year when they've not been out on the road for a while, and they just don't think to look for them, and they just don't pay close enough attention. There's no excuse for it, but that is what happens, unfortunately. And so when you're riding a motorcycle, you have to be very, very conscious of the vehicles in front of you. And if you see somebody that's getting in, if you're going down a road and you see, if it's got a turn lane and you see somebody getting in that turn lane, don't assume they see you. Play careful attention and be ready to slow down and maneuver if you have to maneuver to try to avoid collision. You shouldn't have to, but better to be prepared to do that than it is to go flying over somebody's hood onto the pavement on the other side.
Absolutely. I mean, back in the day, when I was growing up, we called it defensive driving. I can only imagine as a motorcyclist, it's got to be big time.
Yes,
big time defensive driving.
It is.
Wow, Jeff, let's do this. So each year we kind of provide a series of tips for motorcyclists as they're getting back out on the road. And as you said, the weather's really changing. I mean, it's really getting good. It's really getting we're in spring. We're definitely in spring. Derby's not
beautiful
too far
riding
away.
Weather right now.
I would think so. So let's go over some of the mechanical issues that if you own a motorcycle that you might want to be thinking about, because that bike's probably been in the garage or maybe in the barn for a while. So probably a few things you want to check on.
Absolutely. When you first get the bike out, you do need to go over the bike and make sure everything is in good working order on the bike. You should give it a good glance over every time you ride the bike, but especially in the springtime when the bike's been setting up, you want to look it over. You want to check the tires, make sure the tires are in good shape, make sure they're aired up well. From that standpoint, check your brakes, make sure all the brakes and everything are working the way they should be working on it. Check, you want to make sure. One thing with motorcycles, one big piece of safety equipment on motorcycles is if that key's on, the headlight's on.
Yeah.
And headlights burn out, so you want to make sure that headlight is properly working on that bike. That's the thing that is going to stand out even in daytime when someone looks. If the headlight's on, that's something that they spot easier than if the headlight's off. You're not going to spot the bike as easy as if it's on. So that's very important piece of safety equipment on the back from there. So make sure the headlight is working. Check your blinkers, front and back blinkers, and make sure they are working the way they're supposed to be working from that standpoint. And, just give the bike a good once over just to make sure all the equipment's working the way it's supposed to work.
Jeff, let me ask you this, and I don't know this because I don't ride motorcycles, but your headlight, does it go dim as the bulb itself ages? I know, like a fluorescent light in an office or in a hallway, you can tell they start to change color, and that just the light is not as powerful toward the end of life of that bulb. Does that happen in a headlight?
The headlights you'll see, especially with car headlights a lot, they at one point, and they probably still make the stuff that would kind of supposedly clean off the
Oxidation and all
the
that.
oxidation on the lens, on the glass that it's over it. And that will reduce the headlight's visibility on how far it's shining when you have that oxidation build up on it, but it also makes it dimmer for people looking at it, at least in my opinion, it does. And so that makes it somewhat less noticeable than one that does not have the oxidation from that standpoint. Now, I haven't done the actual research to know how much it's going to cut it back, but I'm comfortable it's going to cut it back and make it a little less noticeable from that, just from observing headlights on cars from that standpoint. And so motorcycles, I don't know that I've noticed it as much on my motorcycles that the headlight has caused that much oxidation on it.
Well, I didn't know if it was just the bulb's not as strong as it used to be. Because obviously, to your point, you want other people to be able to see you, so the brighter that bulb, the further out they're going to see you. But I would think I want to see a deer or a possum or something like that in the road that's going to cause me problems.
Sure.
So I want that, even though the bulb's working, is it as bright as it should be?
I don't know the answer to that. It may over time reduce in the intensity of the bulb from there. I don't really know that occurs though, and I mean I know you have some lights inside the home that will dim down somewhat. But I don't know that occurs with headlights and on motorcycles or cars from that standpoint.
Yeah, I know cars just tend to go out.
You'll lose the light itself. It go burn out on you, and you got to replace the bulb. So that is, but making sure that is working on your bike, and probably I don't think you get the oxidation as much just because they're not used.
Right.
As often. I mean, cars get 50,000 miles on them in a few years and takes longer usually. Some people ride motorcycles a whole lot all the time. When the weather's nice, that's their primary mode of transportation to and from work, etc. But generally, motorcycles you just don't get ridden as much as cars get driven.
Right,
So.
that makes a lot of sense. Now, sticking with the theme of the mechanical issues, I mean, this is a good time to look at fluids as well, brake fluid and things like that, as well as your chain, make sure everything's working there.
Chain, or a lot of them are shaft driven, but yes, if you've got an old chain driven, you want to look at that. Make sure all the fluids are where they're supposed to be. If you know what you're doing, I mean, you can check the oil and all of that. You should be able to do that fine. But yeah, making sure all of the equipment is in proper working order, and you don't want to tear your bike up. So one of the things you want to do always is make sure you got proper oil and all of that in it, or you're going to you're going to be replacing the motor of the back one. So
Yeah, and the battery. I mean, I know on a car the battery recharges when you're driving. I would assume the same thing with a motorcycle, but check the age just to make sure you got the cranking capacity. But
correct. Yeah,
Okay.
but yeah, it should. I mean, most, well, I won't say most, but a lot of people I know that ride, they will put a battery tender on it if we're going to set it for a long period of time in the wintertime. They'll have a tender on it, and then
the trickle charge type thing.
yeah.
Okay.
And then that will keep it to where when it is a nice day, you go down there and take it off, and you can crank it up and take off riding with it. But yeah, you want to check the battery on that. Just like the same with the car, you want to. If you've had the battery for 3 or 4 years, it may be getting time to replace that battery.
Yeah, good deal. Well, okay, so the next thing that we like to talk about is really the fact that, well, you haven't ridden and probably the past several months because of the weather. Now that you're getting out there, you got to kind of get that muscle memory and kind of get all that synced back up, right?
I think so. I mean, it's to some extent kind of like riding a bike. You don't forget how to do it. But as you mentioned, your muscle memory, it's been a while since you have done it. And so I think it's always a good idea, first couple of rides, just to ride kind of local, close by type things and just kind of get used to riding the bike, turning, and all of that. And that's what I would, when I get out in the springtime on one, that's one thing I usually do is just ride, 5-10 miles around the house. And we'll maneuver the bike probably a little more frequently than I need to just to get my muscle memory back on doing that. Weave a little bit in my lane to kind of get used to the movement of the bike when I do lean one way or the other, so I can make sure I'm handling it properly when I have to do that. If someone pulls out in front of me and I have to make an evasive maneuver from that, so I think it's always a good idea to do that instead of I've never ridden it, but there's a place in near Gatlinburg that I think is called the Tail of the Dragon. That's got lots of turns, and that would not want to be. Now, I wouldn't want to ride that as my first ride in the springtime after my bike's been up and I hadn't been on one in a while. From there, I think you want to kind of get a little bit used to it before you get on to extremely curvy roads and things of that nature.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, as well as just kind of getting ready for the braking distance. It's going to be a little bit different. It probably doesn't take that long to figure it out, but again, a couple of times out, just really quick, and then you're ready to go, because obviously we want you to have a great time out there, but we want you to get back safely.
Be back safely. That's the important part, is coming back home. Have fun riding. Be careful when you're riding, but make sure you're being safe when you do it, so that you can come back home. Another thing is and I know there are people who don't like wearing a motorcycle helmet, but putting that helmet on, it's a huge safety factor to have that helmet on when you're riding that motorcycle. You're going down the road, you want that helmet on, in my opinion. I have. When I was younger, I've had a couple of wrecks. Most of them were the roads that had where they'd put the chip seal down on top of it, and it was loose. And I only had a few wrecks, but that's the word. 2 of them have been in that situation, and in my helmet was scarred up. I had to get another helmet both times. But it was the helmet that was scarred up, not my face, and not my head.
Yeah.
And I had some skin missing in other parts of my body, on my arm and all, but that heals up a lot better than a head injury does.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And that I was thinking about this driving down here, because just the way I was coming down, I had some sun in my eyes. And are the visors on a helmet? I mean, are they basically like sunglasses, or should you wear sunglasses on your bike? I don't know.
Some visors
in my car, I'll turn down the visor flap, right?
Yeah, some visors are tinted, some aren't. It depends on the visor from that standpoint. I don't really, I've always, or most of the time, wore a full face helmet. Mm-hmm. There's been some that I've wore that didn't have a visor, and I always wore glasses. I wear prescription glasses at all times now anyway. But that tint down, but I don't really recall having any problem with that when I was driving. I mean, I'm sure it's happened at times there, but you can do things when you're driving to avoid that, or when you're riding them. If it's very bright shining in you, you can tilt your head down or something to use
Right.
part of the helmet to help block the sun.
Okay.
If you don't have a tinted,
Right, face mask or whatever.
yeah.
Okay, good deal. Well, let's
or put on shades.
put on shades. There you go. Well, okay, so let's transition into insurance because as a personal injury attorney, I mean, this is something that you deal with every day, and a lot of people there's a little bit of a surprise for some motorcyclists that we'll save to last as we're going through this. But you mentioned something last time that we did this PSA for motorcycles. I didn't realize you could pause motorcycle insurance.
Yeah.
So as you're getting ready to get back out, make sure you've got active coverage.
Correct. You want to make sure your coverage is active. You can pause it when you put it up in the wintertime. You pause the insurance, call them back up when you're going to get out, and get the insurance back on the bike. From there, now they can reassess, and then rate changes and things of that nature occur. But you want to make sure that you have coverage on your motorcycle when you get it out and get ready to start riding. You want to make sure it has insurance coverage on that bike before you pull off your driveway.
Okay.
Because Kentucky requires it.
That makes a lot of sense. The biggest thing that I think about when it comes to motorcycle insurance is really making sure you've got the right amount of coverage. I mean, you may have had a baby, during the wintertime here. I mean, your family situation may have changed. Maybe you've bought some more assets. Maybe you've done some other stuff. You got a raise or whatever. Moved into a bigger home. So, I mean, what was good insurance in your early 20s may not be adequate insurance in your mid 30s, right?
Correct. And one of the things, especially obviously you want good liability insurance in case you are the one at fault and caused in a wreck. But one of the things that, especially with motorcyclists, is you want to make sure you've got good underinsured and uninsured motorist coverage. And we've talked about those a lot in some of the motor vehicle insurance podcasts that we've done from there. But that's the coverage that protects you and protects your family. That is underinsured motorists is if you're in a wreck and the at-fault driver's insurance isn't enough to cover all of your damages, then you can look to your own insurance to cover your damages. Uninsured is very similar in that if you're in a wreck, the at-fault driver doesn't have insurance, you can look at your own insurance to cover your damages. So that's the insurance. Liability insurance is to protect you from being sued by somebody else if you're at fault in causing it. So that's insurance that's paid to somebody else, not to you. Uninsured and underinsured motorist coverage is coverage you're purchasing to protect yourself if the other person has not adequately protected themselves. So if you're injured, you get to recover that from your own insurance company, and your rates don't go up. There's a regulation in Kentucky on that says accessing that coverage does not raise rates. So you don't have to worry about that aspect of it, but that's what you're purchasing to protect yourself in that. And that's one thing you want to make sure of. One thing that people don't understand is there's some, if your motorcycle insurance is with one company because it's got better rates than what your car insurance is with, then your car insurance probably is not going to, even if you got good underinsured and uninsured on your car, very well may not apply to you if you're on your motorcycle, because a lot of policies have in it that they don't provide coverage if you're on a vehicle owned by you that's not insured with them, or says if you're on a motorcycle, we don't provide coverage, because some insurance companies won't provide coverage for motorcycles at all, or it used to be that way. I haven't gone and shopped lately to see if it's still that way, but I suspect it's still that way. So your motorcycle coverage, if you're in a wreck and you say, well, I've got 100,000 or 200,000 of uninsured and underinsured motorists on my car, so I don't have to worry about it on my motorcycle, that may not be accurate. Now, if it's all on the same policy, one coverage, it's got your truck, your car, and your motorcycle all on one, then yeah, you're fine. But if you got Farm Bureau for your vehicles and you've got Progressive on your motorcycle, Farm Bureau probably not going to cover that motorcycle. if you're involved, cover you if you're involved in a wreck in that.
Well, I like the one thing you said is that if you're going to access your UIM, your uninsured or your underinsured motorist coverage, it's not really going to raise your rates because, again, the other driver was at fault. This is just to cover.
Correct.
This was to cover the overage or the.
Yeah, and most people don't realize that.
Yeah.
And now I say that, and then somebody's rate goes up the next time, but that's a lot of times that's just cost of living type increase. I don't know that I've ever had my insurance coverage stay the exact same on coverage and not the next year premium be slightly higher than it was this year. So your rates may go up. It's not going to go up because you've accessed the uninsured or underinsured motorist coverage. It should be a rate change that applied across the board to everybody.
And I know I've mentioned this in the past, but it's a contract. It's a contract, and you're paying a premium for that. So why not use it, right?
Yeah, and if you're not going to use it, then don't pay for it. But pay for it and have it because you need it.
Absolutely. Jeff, the one insurance issue for motorcyclists that I think many people are just not even aware of is the fact that personal injury protection, PIP coverage, does not automatically apply on a motorcycle accident.
Correct. PIP coverage or basic reparations benefits or no-fault coverage, all different terms for the exact same thing. But if you're involved in a wreck, the vehicle you're in or on, if you're riding a motorcycle, the motorcycle you're on, the insurance coverage for that vehicle pays your first $10,000 of medical bills and or lost wages, some other things that can come in there too, but primarily that's what it's used for is medical and lost wages. And it's mandatory coverage for an automobile policy. An insurance company cannot write coverage in Kentucky for an automobile that does not have at least a minimum of $10,000. You can purchase added reparations and benefits and have higher coverage than just $10,000, but they got to write it for $10,000. On a motorcycle, it's optional coverage. It's not mandatory coverage. So you have to actually purchase the PIP coverage for that motorcycle to cover that. And if you don't, the drawback on that is if you don't have that coverage is then now your first $10,000 of medical and or lost wages is damages that you can no longer recover in a lawsuit. So that first $10,000 of medical is now out of your pocket
Even if it's not your fault.
Even if it's not your fault. The other person does not have to. The at-fault driver's insurance does not have to pay for that first $10,000 of medical. A lot of people say, "Well, I don't need it because the at-fault driver is going to end up paying for it." Anyway, that's not the case. You waive your claim for that first $10,000. The only exception is if you filed a rejection of the No Fault Act in Kentucky, which almost nobody has done. But if you reject it for your motorcycle, you reject it for everything. So now you're not going to access PIP anywhere from that. And I don't recommend people do that anyway. Purchase the PIP coverage and have it there, and that can be if you are involved in a wreck and you go to an attorney who does personal injury cases frequently, like I do, or knows what they're doing in handling personal injury cases, having that PIP coverage can actually make a huge difference in the final outcome of your case and how much money you put in your pocket at the end. And so you want to make sure you've got that coverage. That coverage is very valuable coverage to have on your back.
Well, and it's just shocking to me that again, if I'm in a car, both me as the driver, but also every passenger in there gets, an automatic, say, $10,000 worth of coverage. But on a motorcycle, you absolutely don't. And as we talked about in the past, the medical damages, the injuries that you're most likely going to have in a motorcycle accident are far more extensive than what you'd have in a car.
Yeah. If you're in, yeah, exactly, you're correct. And frankly, in a motorcycle wreck, the normal motorcycle wreck, you go to the emergency room, just the emergency room, ambulance ride to the emergency room visit. They're going to do CT scans, X-rays, etc. You're probably going to have more than a $10,000 bill just at the emergency room from that standpoint. So you're generally, a motorcycle wreck at 30 miles an hour is going to result in more severe injuries than a car wreck at 30 miles an hour.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. Jeff, we've got a few minutes left here. One of the things that you talked about was the fact that even though we're early April, you've already got an inquiry on somebody that was pretty banged up in a motorcycle accident. I like these PSAs. I like the way that you've done this every year because, again, you've got a motto here in your office, and I think again the reason that we take up a full episode each spring talking about motorcycle accidents is because it's that small town service approach. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my motto is for the office is we provide small town service and deliver big city results. And the small town service part of it is, if you go on the website and look at the reviews, one thing that you'll see clients frequently say is we answered all their questions. We returned phone calls. Frankly, I try to answer the questions before they're asked. I try to give the people that kind of information ahead of time so that they know what's coming. If somebody knows what's going to come, then when it occurs, it's nowhere near as stressful if it occurs and they had no idea that it was coming. So if you let people know, I've gone through this after practicing for 33 years. I've gone through nearly every scenario you can go through in handling a personal injury case. And so I can let clients know what's going on. Most of the time, it's their only time that they've been involved, so they have no idea what's going on. But providing that service to help alleviate some of the stress associated with the injuries and the claim that they're going through. But part of the reason I do the PSAs on motorcycle, because I've ridden all my life, and I'm very riding motorcycles is something that I enjoy doing, and I've got friends who enjoy doing that. And given these things, I would much rather them not be injured in a wreck than be injured in a wreck. That's just the way it is. And so if somebody listens to this, motorcyclists listen to it, or somebody that drives a vehicle listens to it and then says, yeah, that's right, I need to start paying a little better attention for motorcycles now, and stops and takes that extra second to look a little closer, and it keeps them from pulling out in front of the motorcyclist and causing somebody to be injured, then that's what I'm hoping occurs with these.
No, that makes perfect sense. But I really love the way you approach the practice of law. The Google reviews, the website reviews that you've earned, and I think a review is earned. It's not given. It's absolutely earned. It kind of echoes that, like you said. They talk about your communication style. They talk about the ability, why they trust you, and why how you stepped in and it really kind of just took care of the situation for them in most of the cases that you take on.
Yeah.
You want to talk a little bit about your attorney fee, because that's another thing that I think people who've not been in an accident, they might have a little bit of hesitancy calling an attorney because they've dealt with a divorce attorney or a criminal defense attorney, and that's usually a retainer on an hourly basis. Injury work doesn't work that way.
No, I don't work that way on motorcycle or any type of motor vehicle collision. I work on a contingency fee basis. What that means is that I get paid at the end of the case. When I put money in my client's pocket is when I get paid. So there's no money coming to me at all during the litigation. It's only at the end, when we have successfully resolved the claim, that I get paid. In addition to, and it's a percentage of what I recover. In addition to the attorney fee, I also advance all the litigation expenses. So the cost of pursuing the claim, I advance those costs, deposition fees, filing fees, costs of medical records, etc. All of that's advanced by me, and if we are successful in the case, I get paid my attorney fee and reimburse my expenses. If we're not successful, I don't get paid anything for my services. I don't get reimbursed any of my expenses. I eat that loss in that situation. So, and a lot of people don't realize that, when they think when they first come in, they as well, I don't want to have to pay, what's it cost for me to come in to see. Initial consultations are always free. If you choose to hire me, I'm still, I'm not working for free anymore. I get paid at the end. But if we are successful in the case, but it's not an hourly rate, you don't have to come up with a retainer fee or anything of that nature. You don't have to bring a check in for that first visit for any type of personal injury, motor vehicle collision cases in that regard. So I just don't work on in that regard, never have. there are certain things I do that are done on an hourly rate basis, but not motor vehicle collision. Personal injury cases I don't do on an hourly rate basis.
Okay. And so, as of today, we're recording down here in Calloway County. You're in Murray, right off the square here, but you've got a secondary office up in Hopkinsville in Christian County.
Yes. Yeah, I've got an office up there. I've had it up there for a few years now, and that allows me. I've always had a lot of clients up in that area. I'm one of the few attorneys that just limit my practice to personal injury type work, and workers' comp, Social Security, car wrecks, etc., those type of cases. And so I've gotten a lot of clients in surrounding areas, not just in Calloway County, and have for several years, but up in Christian County. I opened up an office, satellite office up there a few years ago to help take care of my clients up there again, providing that small town service. Instead of them having to drive to me, I drive to them. A lot of it we can do over the phone and through email, etc. But there are certain things I like to do face to face, and that allows us to do that better from that standpoint. But I have just one number. That makes it easier for people to get in touch with me. You don't have to worry about somebody not answering the phone. The number, there's somebody that's supposed to be there answering that phone during regular business hours, Monday through Friday. There, so you'll probably get a live person unless we happen to be tied up on all the other lines. At that point, I've got more phones in the office than I do lines there. So if we're tied up on the lines, then you may get a recording. But as a general rule, you're going to get a live person. The number to call to reach me is 270-753-0053. You can reach, and frankly, initial calls I prefer. Phone call, we'll get information to you and try to get you set up with an appointment if we can do that, and that just works better. Emails are fine, but as a general rule, most people don't share enough information in an email for me to know exactly what's the best route to go, and then we'll set up an appointment and have a conversation either by phone or in person to go over greater detail of what's the best route to proceed and get more information from you if you reach out to me. So.
Outstanding. Well, Jeff, I do appreciate your time. I really do. These springtime motorcycle safety tips, they're important, and I love the fact that as many years as we've been doing this, you've been very consistent with this, and I really appreciate your commitment to the community in terms of doing this. One last thing. Well, you do have an office here in Calloway County and another one up in Christian County, as we said, but when it comes to these types of accidents, you can handle them statewide.
Yes, I can handle them and do handle them statewide. From that standpoint, I've handled motor vehicle collisions. I won't say from Paducah to Pikeville because I don't think I've had a motor vehicle collision in Pikeville, but I've had some over in eastern Kentucky area from that. But yes, I handle motor vehicle collisions and workers' comp cases all over the Commonwealth of Kentucky, and have several clients outside of the western Kentucky region now, up in the Louisville area and Lexington area.
You do a lot up in northern Kentucky as well.
Yeah, I have some up in northern Kentucky. I have a lot up in the Bowling Green area, which some consider that West Kentucky and some don't. It just depends on, if you're in Bowling Green, you may call it Western Kentucky. If you're in Murray, you don't call it Western Kentucky. But but it's a great area of the state either way from that standpoint. And but yeah, I've got a lot of clients up in that area, and I have throughout my career, I've always represented people all over.
Outstanding. Well, Jeff, once again, thanks for your time, and we'll see you here in about 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Thank you for listening to the Roberts Law Office Injury Podcast. Jeff will return in 2 weeks. Until then, he invites you to visit jeffrobertslaw.com and follow his firm on Facebook. At the Roberts Law Office, you'll find a history of small town service and big city results.